Our viewers, I want to thank you for giving your time to listen to us. As we introduced the Kodia Talk Show channel, I want to remind our viewers that this channel is meant to bridge the gap between the pulpit and the pews. Assuming that you are one amongst those people who are on the pews. And there are certain things we say when we are preaching. And some of them you may not agree with. But as the tradition requires, you are expected to keep quiet, to shut up. Don't question anything that comes from a man of God. Recently, I had a burial service. It was a service that was attended by mourners from across the nation, with condolences messages sent from as far as outside the country. Many big people from political divides attended the function. It was my opportunity to preach the word of God to a congregation that comprised of people who do not subscribe to my views, but they had to listen all the same. I want to commend the political elites who attended the function because they spoke so well, they were disciplined, and I have to say some of them moved the crowd into tears as they expounded on the state of the nation. This particular thing that touched me was when we gave opportunity to the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, the former Prime Minister of Kenya, and also a candidate for the chair of AU. When he had the opportunity to speak, first of all, he commended me as the bishop, presiding bishop, for giving politicians a chance also to eulogize the departed. This was the former chair of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, Mrs. Roslyn Odede. So Raila commended me for giving them the opportunity, but he castigated some of the previous incidences where he was denied the opportunity to address the people. I want to address that particular issue, especially the remarks he made to the effect that funeral services do not take people to heaven. He went on and said that the facts that most of the people who attend the funeral, they come to attend the funeral of their own. And he said that witches should be allowed to bury their witches. Thieves should be allowed to bury their own. In other words, politicians should also be allowed to bury their own politicians. In other words, he was castigating the fact that church is taking a very critical role in the burial services. And he went on to say that burial services belong to the bereaved as well as to the community. And the assumption that the church is playing a very important role in funeral matters is something to be reconsidered. And he said that once someone dies, even if you will have funeral service, it won't help that person. If he was destined to go to heaven, he will still go to heaven. But if he was destined to go to hell, he will still go to hell. Some sections of the crowd, especially the young people, clapped for him as he was addressing the mourners. I want to say this. Funeral or burial services are not meant for a political warfare where different political persuasions display their might. Church does not force itself on families. It's the families who ask the church to bury their dead. In this age and time that many of our people subscribe to various denominations or church affiliations, it would be like uncivilized move to say that church should not be involved in burial services. These are members of our churches whom we have nurtured over the years and who subscribe to our doctrine, our philosophy, our tradition, the way we do things. And there is no any moment in time that church has ever imposed itself on its members in terms of burial arrangements. Again, I want to say, when we go for burial services, the intention is not to release the deceased to any place in heaven. That is not our business. Whether taking him to heaven or taking him to hell, that is none of our business. But we are only executing what God began for the people he loved. I want to give a typical example. Moses, who had worked for the Lord for a very long time, when Moses died in Mount Moab, it is God who buried him. So burial services for a person who has served the Lord is an invocation of God's presence. And it cannot be politicized in whichever way. Because someone wants to make a point. Those are populist points which do not make any sense. So theologically, when we assemble for burial service, we gather around the heavenly powers that gives us comfort, that gives the family a sense of hope. It is not for any other show, but it is for the enhancement of solidarity with the bereaved family. During burial services, we hear so many speeches, but every speech will always focus on consolation to the family. If consoling the family can be considered ineffective, inadequate, something that cannot help a person spiritually, then there is no point of having such services in the first place. So I'm addressing the Right Honorable Raila Odinga that he needs to be educated much better than that. That in funeral services, we invoke the indwelling power of God's presence as we console with the family, as we lift them up, as we learn lessons from one another about the life of the departed. Let's take it that burial services is a social gathering. Human beings are social beings. They must gather to celebrate. And as we celebrate, we comfort one another that death is not the final end of life. There is always some hope for those who have done well in the Lord. So I want each and every person to appreciate the beauty of burial services or funeral services, whichever terminology you employ. It is not for a show. We must be in solidarity with those who are bereaved, who happen to be members of our churches. So what is required is that respect, mutual respect of all the social institutions we have in our society, political institution, church institution, and any other institution has its own unique roles to play. Our church, Anglican Church of Kenya, recognizes the sanctity of life of every individual and the right of individual members also to have a say on any issue that might arise. So my viewers, I felt like making this public as a way of correcting some errors which our politicians normally make in order to appear either popular or otherwise. Let us all celebrate any life that has gone to rest with the Lord, with dignity, with the decorum, and with a sense of hope for a better future that can only be found by those who respect the dignity of man, those who respect the divine institution of the church, and those who respect themselves as responsible leaders. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for listening to me. Friends, if you find our channel or our address helpful to you and you feel like continuing to listen to us in our subsequent presentations, please, you can just subscribe and be part of us. And give us also your feedback, because it will be more encouraging to receive from you. It will give us a better direction of what we are to present before you next time. Thank you so much.